Hey guys, welcome back. This is Ray, owner of DRD. Hope you guys are doing well and having a blessed day. Today's video, I'm going to talk about transmission tuning, particularly talking about torque converter lockup with the 68 RFE transmissions and the proverbial shift flare that some people have issues with and complain about and don't quite fully understand. So I'm gonna try to cover that briefly in this video and show you, some truths and some facts about it. Try to explain what's actually going on when you have torque converter lockup and unlock between gear changes and shift flare and all that good stuff, and possibly some things that we can do tuning wise that helps that, but maybe not alleviate it. And some things part-wise that you can do that helps with that as well, especially when you add power and torque. So let's go down the road and I'll show you what we're talking about. All right, guys, before I hit the road, let me show you some things that I won't be able to show you as easily while I'm trying to drive this truck, but got my MM3 tuner pulled up here, truck's idling. Gear position, the way it shows it here, if it's in park, it'll show 0. If it's in reverse, it'll show -1. And if it's in gears 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, it will show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. TCC-S, basically your torque converter state. Got 3 different readings that you'll see on the MM3 tuner that signifies 3 different things. All right, if you see an 8, that means the torque converter clutch is unlocked. If you see a 4, that means it's in what's called partial lock. If you see a number 2, that means it's fully locked. Okay, so let me explain that. With modern day vehicles, you have what is called a torque converter clutch. Now, 20 years ago or so, you didn't have torque converter clutches with an automatic transmission. All you had was just a basic torque converter, which used fluid coupling only to transfer power from the engine to the transmission and ultimately to the wheels. Now, with fluid coupling, there is no mechanical direct linkage between the engine and the transmission. All the power and torque is transferred by fluid coupling. Basically simplified means the torque converter sloshes fluid around, moves it around through various things inside of it, which transfers power from the engine to the transmission. Now that works great. It allows you to operate a vehicle without having to managing a clutch like would be with a manual transmission. It makes things nice and smooth, but fluid coupling only lacks in cruise efficiency, fuel economy, and with a diesel ultimately getting all the torque to the wheels. So with modern day automatic transmissions, you have fluid coupling obviously to get you going and moving, so you don't have to worry about applying the clutch and changing gears manually, but you have a clutch, a mechanical clutch, that can and will lock up, particularly in the higher gears, to give a solid mechanical connection between the engine and the transmission, so that you don't have any slippage, you don't have any wasted engine power, and you get the best economy possible and the best transfer of horsepower to your wheels. So I'm going to stop the camera briefly. We're going to pull out on the road and I'll show you what happens. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about. We're in first gear. We're about to pull out. Torque converter is, the clutch is unlocked. You see signified by gear position 1 and state number 8. So watch this as we start driving the truck. It's in second gear. Third gear, partial lock in third gear, full lock in third gear, partial lock for a gear change, then locks back up in fourth, partial lock during the 4-5 gear change, then back up to full lock up, and the same thing as we go into 6. You see that partial lock up and then full lock up, okay? let me pull off the road and I'll explain to you what you just saw. Okay guys, I'm back in the driveway part, so it's safe to discuss what was going on. So if you saw me, we went through the gears. You saw no lockup at all in first and second gears, and that is normal. That is how the factory torque converter scheduling is set up. Now keep in mind, I do have this truck tuned, but as far as the transmission tuning goes, I didn't alter the lockup schedule. Now I've changed some things line pressure wise and a few other things, but they haven't altered the lockup schedule, and there's a reason for that. Now when we got into third gear, you saw this 8 midway through third gear go down to a 4 and then finally a 2. So that means it transitioned from unlocked, partially locked, then to fully locked. And then suddenly you seen it go back to partial lock and then change gears to fourth. Once in fourth, then it went from partial lock back to full lock, and then it done the same thing again for changing into gears 5 and 6. You see a partial lock, unlock between gear shifts, and then once it changes the gears, it'll go back to full lock. And you know, fully lock is just what it says. It's the mechanical clutch is fully locked. You get 0 RPM flare. You've got all your power and torque going to the wheels at that point, and that's the most efficient for fuel economy and so on and so forth. Now notice that you have a partial unlock between each gear. So basically that mechanical clutch unlocks somewhat during the gear change to basically soften up the hit on the input shaft and the rest of the drivetrain components during the gear change. When you add power and torque with tuning, whatever, that partial unlock will be much more apparent because of the torque converter's efficiency in fluid coupling. So without overcomplicating it, when you add more power than what the factory intended during a gear change, when it goes into partial lock, you'll definitely see an RPM flare. It's not hurting anything, but you're just seeing the inefficiency of the factory torque converter stall speed. Okay, now some tuners have the idea of keeping the torque converter clutch locked completely during a gear change. Now, if it is a competition vehicle and you're trying to get the most that you can get out of it, that's the way to do it. Don't have any slippage. You're not losing anything. And matter of fact, on a street-driven vehicle, keeping the torque converter clutch locked during a gear change, as long as you don't mind that bump that you feel during the gear change, it actually feels very positive, feels very performance-wise. It feels great. But the downside is these 68s can't, the input shaft, the factory input shaft just cannot stand a fully locked shift with any significant power or torque long. You will eventually break an input shaft if you have what's called a lock shift tune, in which the torque converter clutch stays locked between gear changes. So what can you do? Well, one thing we're going to do with our tuning is reduce the time that is in partial lock somewhat to try to limit the flare, the RPM flare that you do get, without compromising the needed cushion between gear changes. So I think we can, you know, play with scheduling a little bit and tighten things up a little bit, but still leave, you know, room for safety. Another thing we can do as a tuner is to make sure that we leave the factory torque management or defueling in place during a shift. And we do that. If you leave that torque management in place, although you do still get some RPM flares, not as great as it would be if you removed all the torque management during shifting. So we leave torque management in place during shifting. Now, if you're trying to have your cake and eat it too and try to protect your transmission, what you can do is change a mechanical part, which is your torque converter. But that's an expensive option, okay, because you got the price of a new torque converter plus the installation. Now, if you want to go that route, and we've had a lot of customers that have gone that route, you can get a lower stall converter. We deal with RevMax. They're great to deal with and make good torque converters and transmissions and components. You can go with their low stall or their ultra low stall, depending on application. If you do a lot of towing, ultra low stall. If you just do mild towing and, a lot of unloaded driving, you can go with the low stall. And installing that will take away that RPM flare because it's got a tighter fluid coupling between gear changes. You may or may not understand that, but that's about the best way I can explain it. But torque converter change is a great thing if it fits the application. And if you got any more questions about that, feel free to email me, contact me through Facebook, and we can talk about it. But that is torque converter and lock. That is shift flare. That's what causes it. That's the reason behind it all. And anyway, I wanted to kind of explain it to you in a video. I've done it in times past, but due to obvious reasons, I had to take a lot of those videos down because it was dealing with off-road tuning, and we can't talk about off-road tuning no more moving forward. But I wanted to do this video, bring it back to life, and show you what is going on. And in a future video, after some transmission tuning revisions, I'll show you what we can accomplish with tuning while maintaining a level of safety for the gear changes. So as always, guys, thanks for following along. God bless each and every one of you, and we will see you again soon.